I just got back from the very first Fiber and Fabric Craft Festival in Rosemont, Illinois. And I'm going to break down my experience day by day so you can figure out if you want to go next year. Because let's face it, as creatives, we have had a huge void left behind, R.I.P. Joanne, and we are looking for ways to fill that gap. And that's where Koelnmesse came in to organize a space for businesses to sell direct to consumers, whereas they usually host H+H, the trade show version. And why should you trust some random person on the internet? Well, I have been a stage manager and a large-scale event manager, including working for cruise lines, for the last 17 years. Now, this festival's goal was to help you craft your passion and celebrate creativity. And if you take a wide view of what the event actually was, I do think they accomplished their goal. Even if they had some booths there that I personally disagree with being allowed in a space like this. It's AI. That's the answer. And no, I'm not sponsored by them to make this video. I am sponsored by Suri, but we'll talk about them in a little bit. But you can't even go to the event without the planning. First up, ticket fees were pretty affordable. A one-day ticket was $15. A 3-day ticket was $30. Now, the classes themselves were not included in this entry fee. So each class you wanted to take was additional on top of that, and that rate was set by the event, not by the teacher. The classes ranged from a $40 ticket for a 60-minute class to a $140 6-hour class, with 2 package rates available that made everything a better deal. Because you see, at this festival, I was not just ye olde attendee. No, I was a teacher. And you see, I do respect that Koelnmesse, the parent company of this, was trying to not only pay teachers a little better for their time. However, I think in this economy, we started the prices just a little too high for people to feel like it was really accessible. Now, class signups are a big indicator of how effective events are going to be for the event goers. Now, since I was teaching, I opted not to take any classes. But I know some folks were struggling to get signed up, as they had the teachers post a little blurb to attach to their social medias or mailing lists to help make signups a little bit easier. Now, since I flew in and was staying within walking distance of the conference center, I did not personally park my car, but the convention center website says parking is standardly $20 a day, but it can go up depending on the event. And the last big thing that can make or break your convention before it even starts is the communication. Which I am going to say this with my whole chest. I have never experienced this level of communication from an event, ever. There were so many updates, and to me, as an event person, they felt very clear, concise, and like they were giving you the cumulative knowledge that you would need to succeed at this event. As we got closer though, they might have gotten a little too communicative, but that's just to me the person who does an event and not necessarily an attendee coming off of the street who maybe hasn't gone to an event like this before, in which you need some more communication. But no level of communication will stop me from forgetting things, especially my necessities. After a long day of travel, the last thing I want to worry about is how are my teeth going to be clean? And that is where the sponsor of today's video comes in, Suri. Suri is an electric toothbrush that has over 10,000 5-star reviews. And honestly, I'm one of them. I love this toothbrush. This thing upped my game so much in taking care of my dental health. Because why do we have bones that we personally have to clean? That's my issue with whoever created this fine form here. These are bones that you have to maintain, unlike the others that just exist in your body without help from you, except for nutrition. But this thing truly up-leveled my toothbrush game, because not only is it an aluminum body, so it is perpetually recyclable. Also, all the toothbrush heads, these things that usually on others are made out of plastic, is entirely plant-based and 100% recyclable by Suri. So you ship them back to be recycled to the company that you actually got this from. And if I'm being real with you, when I travel like I do to these events, I never remember chargers for toothbrushes. Nope, not one time. Not even when I would go on upper contracts for a full month would I remember a toothbrush charger. This toothbrush, this little dude right here, holds charge for a month. So that's a month of me not having to worry about charging this thing while I'm traveling on weekends. And then I can come home and put it on the charger right here in my house, and I'm good to go for another month. So if you want to up-level your teeth cleaning game, make sure that you're clicking the link down below in the description or scanning the QR code right here and using my code Stephanie15 to receive an extra 15% off of your Suri. And I have a feeling you'll figure out why I love it so much. I'd wink, but I can't wink. Now let's talk about the Thursday, which I have gracefully called Day 0, because that is the day where there is nothing going on the show floor other than setting up, and all of the classes are happening in the classrooms in the first section of the building that you walk through from the parking garage to the event. Uh-oh, I accidentally ended up at the Donald E. Stevens con. And yes, my very first thing that I'm going to talk about, because it's the first thing that you see, is the signage, which on the first day was a little lacking. I believe I saw one sign at the end of a long corridor, like right as I was coming into the convention center itself proper, but I don't remember seeing anything prior to that and kind of wondering like, oh, where am I going? What's happening? I believe I only found the way that I was going because there was another person that had literally exited from there and said, registration is that away. And I was like, oh, thank you so much. And the reason the signage is so key is because they ask you to register before you go to your classes, which means you get your badge. And that is how they were scanning folks to let them in and count them for each class. However, the signage to get down to registration was sparse on the Thursday. And that is because when you first came in and I saw that first sign, the very first sign I saw from them, I got hopeful. I was like, oh, great. We're in the conference room. Now there's going to be signage. I went to make my first walk down the hallway following the sign. Great, love that. Got to the corner, right? And I was like, oh, well, I'm supposed to turn left or do I go into these doors? Because it looked like the doors, which were actually just the classroom entrances, were where they were trying to tell you to register. Which, on a day 0, I do think it would behoove you to bring at least one registration desk up to the classroom area so that if folks are only going there for classes, they don't have to walk the whole way down the hallway and around the corner and down the escalators to get to the registration, which is technically only inside of the actual show floor. So this is the entrance to the actual show floor, but registration lost signs, but it's right over here before you get to show floor. However, I will say once I got down there, registration for me personally on the Thursday was quick and easy. They scanned my ticket code, they printed off my badge, and Bob's your uncle, we moved on. Now, my classes, I adored. I made it. I am here at my classroom today. I am the only one in room 23, so both of my classes are right here, and I'm very excited. I've already had a decent conversation, and I'm going to go in and teach people about the mystery that is vintage sewing patterns and to clear up some questions. I don't think I'm this fancy for this level of lighting in here. There's even a little hidden water bottle for me if I need it under the podium. Look at how pretty she is when she's turned on. Welcome to Demystifying Vintage Sewing Patterns. My name is Stephanie Canada, just like the country, and no, I don't live there.
1 hour later.
Oh my goodness. So I just got done teaching Demystifying Vintage Sewing Patterns, and holy crap, that was so much fun. I definitely need coffee because the hotel's coffee is not where it's at. But man, oh man, that was such a wonderful time. And now I'm super hyped to do my rethrifting class, but that's also in like 5 hours, so I have some time to recharge, recenter, and caffeinate. The only downside was that there was a very large chunk in the Thursday between my first class, which was 10:45, and my second class, which was at 4:30. What does a content creator do? You find your fellow content creators and you do silly things for the gram. Oh. This is behind the scenes Tony getting into the dinosaur costume for our very silly short reel thing that we're doing right now. This is so great. There's Casey, and somewhere in there is Quilt Tony Quilts. I also helped the Casey Renee set up and get some B-roll while they were setting up their beautiful Dracula dress. Everybody hard at work putting their cosplays up. We are currently hiding a gnome in Casey's skirt, and this is comical because this is the person that runs it. After this silly adventure, it was time to gnome about because I needed to find the stage that I was going to speak at on Friday afternoon. Okay, so this is the craft talk, you guys. Holy crap. I really hope there's plenty of butts that show up for this, cause yikes, that's so many. There it is. Vintage plus cosplay equals perfection. Ha ha ha. 145. Casey's right there. Look. There it is. Oh my God. I'm so excited for this. Then to fill the rest of my time until my final course. Yeah, the last content creator lounge I went to is just pathetic compared to this thing. I played around with all the fun photo op spots in the main entryway. And I will say that while my class did absolutely wonderfully from 4:30 to 6. Good evening, almost, sorta, kinda, everyone. Hi, I'm Stephanie Canada, and you have just entered the Rethrifting Zone. You're welcome.
Several bad puns later.
Teaching number 2 is done. Oh my gosh, today was such a good day. I will say, I already enjoy the classes here. I enjoy the layout. So I'm really excited to see what actually the show's version starts tomorrow, where I get to be on the main stage. And I wrapped up my evening with dinner. Which means it's time for day 1, Friday. And Friday came with the opening of the expo floor, which, again, I just have to give it to Koelnmesse and the whole team. Y'all are beautiful human beings for people like me. You didn't open your expo until 10 a.m. in the morning, which meant I could get sleep like a normal human being, even though my body had other plans. So at this point, I think it's just a thing with me that on day 1 of a new conference, I just wake up at 6:30 in the morning. Now, I say that knowing that I'm a night owl, and I am sure that there are some folks that wished it would have opened earlier, which is fair. However, for someone like me who only really gets her brain fully woken up by 10 a.m., 10 out of 10 loved it. Actually made me think about vending next year because the time is just spectacular. And the show floor did stay open until 6 p.m., which is usually an hour after some of the other festivals that I've attended. So you still got a full day in, but for me, it was at much more a reasonable time. But registration for the Friday goers opened up at 8 a.m. So that way, if you wanted to get there early and get your registration ready for the 10 a.m. start, or for your 9 a.m. classes, which there were some of those, you could do that. However, while I do not think this was Koelnmesse's fault, there was a little snafu at registration on Friday.
But yes, please bear with us. We will be opening the doors shortly for you to go have some fun.
Because the group directly in front of me informed me that not only were they still missing some of their members, but that it had taken them close to 40 minutes to get their whole badges. It's because the printers that they were using, which I think are the convention centers, weren't really working well. I'm not 100% sure that they knew that there was going to be a literal line of people to get in. Because I know usually on trade shows, that's not really how that goes. You all just kind of linger and then go. But consumer shows, absolutely there is a line. Oh yes, absolutely. Every single one I've been to, there is always a line of people waiting to get in. Especially at places like So Expo, it showed me that if there is an entrance to be entered into, that is where this audience is going to go. And so while I think they really wanted everyone to enter at this one particular place right at the center, not down the row of the quilts, they're gonna go where they're gonna go if they're not stopped. So there was a whole separate line down at the end of the quilts that still led into the section where you could go shopping. But the other issue was that the registration line, you know, they're not a single file line. That's not how these events go. You're with your friends, you all cluster together, and that is your group that goes in the line. Well, that grouping had bumped up directly next to the registration lines.
That's the line.
line to get in. Like, there's no nothing. The longest line to get in did actually go through the door. I was closer to the front of it, so I'm not actually sure how far it went back. But I did watch folks who didn't have lanyards yet, and you needed your lanyard to get into the expo hall, that they were standing like behind me or behind the lady behind me. And we, the other attendees, were having to be like, hey, if you don't have your lanyard, you should go to the kiosks right over here in this half of the line. But there was one lady in all black who was trying to help folks get to the correct line, but it was a large task for one person. And these are your most dedicated people, right? These are the people who are going to come at the very first day one, like they always do to all of their shows, so that they can get the newest and best things. And while they did have one PA system with a speaker, they were trying to do announcements. However, it was very hard to hear even from where I was. And once they opened the gates, bless, I love the countdown to no movement. It was time to go enjoy the show floor. And I just found the subway system installation. I love it. Pizza Rat! And I understand what they were trying to go for. Their biggest sponsor, I'm pretty sure the shop that did all of the sewing machine sponsorships, was Linda Z's, which is no small feat, and I think it deserves a round of applause, and they should absolutely have prime booth placement. However, the entrance went directly into her booth. And I don't mean like kind of, I mean like you walk in and immediately you had to pick like left or right, which if you're looking for a better flow, you want to make that a clean aisle with maybe all of Linda Z's on either side and the subsequent aisles. But you want that initial dive so that people, if they want to go deep into the start, they can, or they can make the left or right. But by running us into a physical booth, that's not helping Linda Z's, that's actually kind of hurting them. And while I appreciate the sheer number of vendors that were on the floor, I feel like it was slightly off balance. Hi, Garment Sewist here. There was really not much there for me. There was my friends, Ditto Forms, and J Stern Designs. There was a wonderful booth from Bangladesh that had stunning garment indigo dyes, very pretty fabrics. And there was also folkwear patterns. And even Trisha, Creative Costuming Academy. Hey guys, I found Trisha.
Hi, I'm here.
And look, she already has my sticker on her water bottle. Also, come to PatternCon, see?
Yeah,
PatternCon.
PatternCon.
Which, yes, is going to be August 1st and 2nd of this year in Atlanta, which I am also teaching my classes there. And I do believe there is still openings if you want to sign up. I'll put the registration down in the description. So while I was looking for garment stuff at F&F, I didn't see a whole lot of it there. Saved me a whole lot of money though. Now, that's not to say there wasn't stuff there for me. There was a place called the Trashy Market, which is absolutely directly up my aisle because it was all upcycling and vintage, and I never went back for that notebook I wanted. Dang it. Literally just realized that in real time. But like, it was so cool. There was a vintage seller there. There was like a rental house there. There was local businesses in that section, which was spectacular. I loved that section. I also loved to see all the cosplay costumes finally on their mannequins. From Setter Specs and Caffeine Craft, Maker Fishmeal, M. Jasmine Design, The Casey Renee, and a Woodland Nymph by Cherrywood Fabrics. It was so great to get to see all of these works of arts up close and on display. After that, it was my turn to do a quick change and get into cosplay for my craft talk on the stage about vintage plus cosplay equals perfection. Good afternoon, everyone. You can say hi, I don't bite, I'm up here. Hello everyone, welcome to Vintage plus Cosplay equals Perfection. And while this recording sounds quite good, that's because I remembered to turn my microphone on. However, this is what it actually sounded like. Such as this lovely Daphne that you see right here. Don't judge me that I don't have my wig, I can't find it, it's fine. Yes, unfortunately, the craft talk stage was directly next to the very loud air handler. Never fear, they already noticed it and have it on the list to make sure that does not happen again next year. Ah yes, but the one thing I did notice about that Friday is that, like clockwork, man, 4:15 showed up crickets. Because all the folks that had arrived at 10 were gone and the later arrivers weren't coming in probably until the Saturday. So it died off pretty quickly on the Friday. And that's all well and good, but now let's dive in to day 2, Saturday. This is where I started to see real change come in with the signage. Because yes, there was a little bit of a difference between Thursday and Friday, and we did respect that. However, Saturday I noticed even bigger changes because they were trying to actively, in real time, update the signage to get the guests where they needed to go easier and faster. Oh, hey, look. This is also important because there was also a gym show that was on another level, which is the one that I almost walked into on the Thursday, thinking that it was the registration for the actual event. It was not. That was a moment. But seeing this event and their managers actively change in real time shows that they care, which is key because when you go to the line for Saturday, listen, coming down the escalator, it was a bit of a moment. There's the line. It's already back here. That is the line way back there. But what I respected is that they were trying something different. This time for the Saturday, what they had done is they had used a stanchion, which is basically a stretchy blockade with those little rubber things that, like, if you hit them and they snap, they go to the other pole. Those are called stanchions. They had used those to block off the entire quilt wall so that the entire line for entry on Saturday was at the main entrance that went into Linda Z's, the one right next to registration, and then went out the main door. Well, by the time I got there, the line was all the way to the back wall. And then by the time they let us in, this happened. And the line ended up over by the bar. And that unfortunately comes with its own problems. Because as an attendee, if you do not know that you must have a lanyard, you are going to see the line and you're going to assume that is the line for me. I must stand there. That wasn't the line, unfortunately, for day 1 attendees. If you needed to go to registration, there was a much shorter line, closer to registration. However, we kept seeing people with no lanyards standing in line to the point that, once again, the attendees took it upon ourselves. It was like me and the folks behind me. We were like, our job is to get the folks that don't have the lanyards. So I held their place in line while they went and were grabbing people and were sending them down. While there was one person, again, coming to the line, grabbing the people, and then walking them up to where the line was for registration, it wasn't enough. But it showed that they cared because they wanted to make sure people got into the right line. But then 10 o'clock came and I'm sure there was an announcement given. I wasn't anywhere close to hear it because they only had the one speaker. It's just really funny to know that the event is open, but it's just gonna take you a minute to get in there. All right, we're moving. Good morning, no fit check because I'm in Kermit and we're already in the show. Now I will say, as a very small member of Ye Olde cosplay community, I actually wanted to make sure that I introduced myself to the fellow cosplayers and, you know, just generally had a moment to support them and see what they needed. Well, the brunette ambassador was Melanie Jasmine, and she was doing a cosplay crawl where she would take folks around the show floor to show them booths that maybe they wouldn't have thought of could be used for cosplay things, but was trying to showcase these items in cosplay style, which I thought was a really interesting concept. However, I did feel really bad for her because while there supposedly was a way to scan the QR code that she had and was up for her class, it wasn't working. So even though she had a pretty decent group, I want to say of about 12 to 15, and she didn't want to start the class late just to make everyone go to the front and pay up front. So she started the class anyway by taking everyone around, giving them little worksheets. It was really great. I really liked that. The thing was, only about 4 to 5 people had actually pre-registered because they didn't understand that this course that was on the show floor was an additional fee. By the time we got to the end of it, 45 minutes later, she had lost a fair amount of people that hadn't actually paid for the class. Now, I do not know if those folks on their own went up to registration and, paid for it so it looked like she had the number that she had. But I will say I do hope they did that, because if she can't prove the numbers for the course, then they might not bring her back next year because, oh, well, only 4 people showed up for this class. When in actuality, I do think we started out with 10 or 12. But I will say it was super fun to support her and kind of, be a hype man for her as she was going around. Because again, I want to help out fellow cosplayers. I want to help out fellow vintage sewists or regular sewists or quilt makers, even though don't take quilting advice from me, dear God, that would be bad. And while on Friday, I had accomplished about half of the booths, the other halves I made sure to save for Saturday, which is where I realized that not only did the person that I had seen the previous day talking about AI nonsense when they asked AI what AI is. So glad we're spending our precious Earth resources on that nonsense, that they had an entire booth there, which to me does not belong in a crafting convention at all, period, full stop. And that's not to mention that there was at least one other booth that I saw that absolutely had AI-generated nonsense bag material just chilling on their wall like it's nothing. It's not cute, it wastes resources, it's damaging to the planet, and it's stole from other artists. I don't know why this is unclear. AI does not have a place in the crafting and sewing community. But I made sure to end my day on a high note because my friends at Trailhead Company had sponsored a booth and they had decorated it like it was a campground, complete with full pink quilted mousse. And they do s'mores at least once a day during the show. You guys, I'm with a very important person right now, VIP Carol, because she has the s'mores.
The s'mores.
Oh, I also organized a group of us to go to the Devil Wears Prada too, but that has nothing to do with the review. That was just fun. And then it was on to day 3, Sunday. And I will say this to start. My flight was actually pretty early on in the day on Saturday, even though it got delayed pretty badly. So I didn't get to experience the full Sunday. However, I did make sure to go back through and see if anything had been changed, which again shows me how much this event cares because it absolutely had. It's 9:52. I am running late. I am determined to see if they've tried to fix the line again, and I'm excited to see what changes have been made. Which I will say, where we landed on Sunday, I think is a better place to be in, because what they were doing is they were leaving registration alone, and they were actually taking everyone down on the far side of the quilt wall, but before the barrier to get into the expo floor, and having us line up along the drape. And then I'm assuming if there were enough people, you would like loop them back around and then maybe back and forth in front of the quilts. This is, I truly believe, if you're going to be in the same area with the same setup, this is the way to go. Because it allowed folks to stay far away from registration and not get the two lines intermingled. But Sunday was a much smaller crowd. So if you are looking to go next year and you don't vibe on the big crowds, I will say go on the Sunday, because there was still plenty to do. You got plenty of time in the actual expo. It was open until 3 p.m. and there were still some classes, but without the crowding of Friday and Saturday. Now, I will say I never felt unsafe with the number of people that were there. I don't think we ever hit anywhere near capacity. And there was always room to move through the aisles, unlike some of the other conventions I go to, which can get kind of overcrowded with the aisles as they get to be too small. So this, I think, was a very nice balance of traveling and leaving them wide enough so that it didn't feel claustrophobic. But really on Sunday, the most exciting thing that really happened to me was running into the Luderlo folks, you know, with the pattern drafting system. This one.
Okay, hi Stephanie.
Hi.
It's nice to meet you here on
Nice to meet you.
the fiber and fabric exhibitions. Hi everybody, I'm really happy to have you as my model today, and I'm going to make a pattern for you in the next 5 minutes. So may I take your bust and your hip measurement?
Absolutely.
So
But first off, everybody, I want you to know this is actually happening You asked for it, so it's happening. Yeah.
And now we go into the center of the cross in the pattern design. So I look for your bust measurement, 126. I go right into the center here.
Okay.
And now you see I can move and rotate my tape measure around the pattern design.
And with the skill of someone who's been doing this way longer than I have, stares at the terrible Velma. I had a pattern.
What nice and good fit we had. Right under the armhole, it fits really nice. The waistline is right where it needs to be. Here we could make another dart if we want to have it more tailored.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, cool.
And I think
that they gifted me. Again, not sponsored, but this is a gifted product. And they gave me the ruler and the very cool vintage book.
And I bet you're gonna like this one as well. This is a
Now
really
that's what I'm used to seeing. There it is.
really nice, all the original. And here you see the pattern. Happy sewing, everybody.
And if you do want to take home a Luderlo, again, I'm not sponsored by them, but you can use my code Stephanie15 to get 15% off on their website. But with all of that said and done, would I actually go back to this event? That answer is a hearty yes. Absolutely, I would. Was it perfect? No. No first-time event is going to be perfect. But what I saw there and what matters to me is the care and consistency with which they were changing things that did not work. This is a place that I really feel if you give them the feedback, they will take it and, use what they think is applicable. But they're actually listening. And that's the key. So many of these, especially sewing conferences, we will give this feedback and it will fall on deaf ears. It won't go anywhere. Even as a teacher, the feedback doesn't seem to be taken. But this event in particular, I think really has people that care about it and want to see it succeed, which means listening to the consumers. What an idea, right? Who would have thought that listening to your customer base will help you out in the future? But overall, I had a truly great time. I got to meet and finally talk to some people who I've only ever really got to chat with online or for like a brief moment at other conventions. And so it was a really great way to start this convention, to be there for the excitement of the very first time, and get to make better connections with the folks that I usually only see through these screens that you're watching me on right now. And also, if you stop me to say hello, trust me that I know every person who said hello to me warmed my heart so much. I love getting to see folks in real life, and it's not lost on me how amazing this little community that we have built of chaos sewists, because y'all are the best, and I cannot wait to see you, hopefully at PatternCon, but if not, we'll see each other at another craft fair. And if you do want to take home your own suri, make sure you're clicking the link down below in my description and using my code Stephanie15 to get 15% off of your suri. But until next time, friends, I hope you're sewing in chaos, and I'll see you next time. Bye. So this is the outfit of the day. We are in a blue dress, and I forgot to do yesterday. So sorry. Bye, gotta go. Okay. Starting the microphone. If it doesn't work this time, it's the microphone's fault. And no, I'm not gonna stop the recording. Do-do-do-do-do-do. How does this look? Oh, wretched. Okay, great.